Hello and welcome to this special episode of Kickback with Chris, the martial arts podcast. This week it is our Jean-Claude Van Damme special. It's been delayed a little bit because of some other things that we've had going on that I've had to shuffle around, but the delay, the way it's happened, is actually managed, and I'm not going to admit to knowing this until about half an hour ago. It's managed to land exactly on Jean-Claude's birthday. So born October the 18th, which is today, in 1960, in Brussels in Belgium. Born, now, I've got to get this right, his full name is Jean-Claude Camille Francois van Varenberg. I think I'm saying that right. I'm sure that there's some super fans out there that could probably correct me. So Jean-Claude Camille Francois van Varenberg. I can see why he shortened it down a little bit now as well. Now, he actually, interestingly enough, he went by the name of Frank Cujo for a while, or Cujo, depending on how you want to say it, when he was first trying to make it big in the States. But rather than skipping details, I think it's probably best that we go right back to the start. So, as I said at the outset, who is Jean-Claude Van Damme? Now, I'm actually reading this from a bio that I've printed out. Jean-Claude Camille Francois van Varenberg was born on October the 18th, 1960, in Brussels, Belgium. As a child, he began studying Shotokan karate aged 11 and also eagerly took up weightlifting and ballet. I'm just going to interject here a little bit as well, which shows the poise of his kicks. I'm not going to go off on a massive kick rant. Well, not a rant, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to go off on one of these kicking things. You know what I'm like about my kicking, but the poise and control and dexterity in his kicking is absolutely phenomenal. And I put a huge amount of that down to his training in ballet, because you can just see from the way he can extend and point, and it's just you'll know it's perfect. I've lost my place in this now. Oh, here we go. As a teenager, Van Damme won the middleweight championship of the European Professional Karate Association and was named Mr. Belgium in a bodybuilding competition. Van Damme opened a gym in Brussels and earned some modelling work, but he was enthralled with the idea of becoming a film star. After briefly attempting to break into the thriving martial arts movie industry in Hong Kong, China, he moved to Los Angeles, California in the early 1980s to pursue his Hollywood dreams. And I think he's talked about. And this is me actually. Now I'm not reading from this thing. I think he's spoken about this a number of times about how he got his break in Hollywood. And as I mentioned earlier, he originally called himself Frank Cujo. And he's obviously started out as a lot of people do, with some smaller sort of bit parts in feature films. So somebody listed here involved being a cab driver, a waiter, an aerobics instructor, and a nightclub bouncer. I'm just going to go back onto what it says here now. He tried to make a name for himself in Tinseltown, that's their words. It was featured in the 1986 martial arts flick No Retreat, No Surrender, which I think many of us have seen. And if you haven't seen it, it's an absolute classic. It's brilliant in a really bad way, if that makes sense. It's like one of those guilty pleasure films. It's not the best acted film in the world, but just for sort of the nostalgia feeling and the pure 80s-ness of it, you've got to watch it, even if it's only once. It's just one of those films. You've got to see it once. If you've not seen No Retreat, No Surrender, go hunt it out. It's probably online somewhere to stream, obviously legally, but there's some classic moments in it. So yes, it said there, he was featured in the 1986 martial arts flick No Retreat, No Surrender, but his big break came after he displayed his ability to perform a jumping 360-degree helicopter kick, and they've put the quotes there, helicopter kick, to a movie producer who then cast the unknown actor in the film Bloodsport, where I think that that's obviously where things really took off for him. Bloodsport. It's saying here that the film grossed a surprising, they say surprising, I don't think it's surprising, $35 million at the box office, and Van Damme followed up with another successful starring role in Kickboxer the following year. And I think it's fair to say that from the recordings that people have sent in. Oh, by the way, so what we're going to do this episode, for those that don't know, who haven't listened before, is I've had a quite a long list of names submit recordings about their favourite Van Damme films. We've even got some people that have worked with him that know him as well. They've sent in their clips on their experiences working with him and knowing him as a person. But I think it's fair to say that Bloodsport and Kickboxer are going to be heavily featured, so shall we say, along with some others. I mean, I'll share mine a little bit later on as well, but I'll save those ones till the end. I'm going to just go on to the next bit now. Over the following decade, Van Damme filled the big screen in such action flicks as Double Impact, Universal Soldier, Time Cop, Sudden Death, and Maximum Risk. Overcoming his limited acting chops. Well, that's their words. I don't know that that's overly fair, to be honest. But we'll come back to that in a minute. With his acrobatic kicks and patented splits. God, this is so cheesy, this bio, it's unreal. He made his directorial debut with The Quest. Now, I didn't realise that he directed that, to be fair. And I haven't watched that for a while. I probably haven't watched that since it came out. Around that time, The Quest. I'm going to go back and revisit that one now. That's prompted me. It goes on to say, in 2008, Van Damme resurfaced as a fictionalised version of himself in the part satirical, part confessional. That's very descriptive. Jean-Claude, well, it's listed as JCVD. If you've not seen that, don't stop listening. But after you've listened to the podcast, or if you're on a break from it, do make a point of watching that, because it's now I don't want to say surprisingly good. I think it's surprising. I think a lot of people I don't think we're quite sure what to expect going into it, but it is actually very, very well put together, and there's an incredibly moving monologue section. I can't remember how far into it is, where Jean-Claude's talking direct to camera, and he sort of raises up into the rafters as he's speaking direct to camera, and it's quite a heartfelt, quite a personal scene. So yeah, do go and watch it. Back onto this anyway. His performance drew positive reviews and triggered something of a revival for the former action star. Well, I won't say he's former. He was an action star still, who went on to reprise familiar roles in Universal Soldier Regeneration, and his voice to the character of Master Croc in excuse me. Oh dear. In Master Croc in Kung Fu Panda 2. In 2012, Van Damme was back to his elements as part of the veteran butt-kicking ensemble. Wow, what a way to describe them. Veteran butt-kicking ensemble. Featured in Sylvester Stallone's The Expendables 2, which was actually pretty good. I did enjoy that. It's a little bit underutilized at the end, but maybe they had to do that. You know, they couldn't have him taking the starring role in the fight, I suppose. It does go on to list some personal life stuff, but I'm not going to go into that too much. What I will say is, I've been really impressed with how he's opened up with regards to his tough times. You know, I think it's fair to say that he did go through a tough period with drug use and other problems, and the fact that he's been so willing to open up and talk about that it shows the strength of his character. And also, more recently, him talking about his bipolar disorder, which he freely speaks about on his Facebook Live and in other interviews, and the difficulties that he's had with that, which, I think that it draws people to him even more so that, this is he's just another normal guy, like you or I, has the same struggles as lots of people, and openly discussing this sort of thing in a public forum. Whilst some maybe don't agree with it fully in the industry, I think it's admirable, and it's a credit to himself that he's willing to share that. Right, anyway, I think it's time for us to get into the first of our listener, I'll say listener in air quotes, and friend recordings, the first of which come in from another action star, a UK action star, Mr. Mark Strange.
Brought to you by www.mittmaster.com.
Hi, Kickback Podcast. This is Mark Strange, and my favourite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie is Hard Target, because it's a good fusion of martial arts, action and gunplay, and obviously the maestro of John Woo behind the film as well is an incredible combination. I thought Van Damme looked pretty cool in that, and that is my choice.
Thank you, Mark, for that submission, and I have to agree, brilliant choice. Hard Target is an absolute classic. It's actually, as you mentioned there, John Woo's it was actually his directorial debut, his American directorial debut. Obviously not his first film, but his first film in America. And what a classic! What an absolute classic! Obviously, Van Damme playing Chance Boudreaux as the out of work Cajun merchant seaman, and he comes along to save or help out Natasha Binder. And there's some absolute classic scenes in this one. One of my absolute favourite fight scenes, actually. It's only very basic, but it's just how stylistic it is, how cool it is. The scene where the two thugs are trying to steal young Miss Binder's purse or something along those lines, and Van Damme comes along and he says, take your pick. I won't try and do the accent. I'm not going to embarrass myself. He's like, take your pick stick and your boyfriend and find a bus to catch. And then he does the spin hook kick on the kicks the guy out. Oh no, we starts off with the sort of bouncing hop hook to round kick to like take the two guys out. It's all done in slow motion as he pulls his coat away, and the spin hook kick takes the guy off the top of the car. Swings the guy around into the post. I can't remember what sort of, like a weird post thing. And then the bit where he spin hooks kicks the guy in the back of the head and he goes through the window, and it's got the jump cut in there, and it's such a cool scene. Oh, and of course he spins the guy around and by his arm and snaps his arm, and I believe that's sort of cut in different scenes as well. I know that there was some different edits, some different cuts of this film that are out there, different like theatrical cut and a director's cut, that sort of thing. But yeah, an absolute classic. And the scene where he's riding along on the back of the motorbike, like a sort of surfboarding on the bike, and then dives over the car. Who can forget the classic? It's almost become like a meme, hasn't it? The GIF file that goes around where he punches the rattlesnake, knocks the rattlesnake out, then bites the rattle off the end of the snake. And yeah, some absolute classic scenes and some classic lines as well. And the super villain, the such cool character of Pick Van Cleef as well. Who can forget? And yeah, it's a great film, and one that I do encourage you, if you've not seen, to go and watch. Take time to watch. Too many classic scenes in there to remember. Actually, I'm just thinking now on the spot while I'm recording this. Obviously, I won't spoil the ending, but there's some very, very cool sort of fight shootout at the end, which and again another classic in Van Damme history. Right, so the next one we're actually going to go to our friend Lucci Delgado from the Kaiser Martial Arts Show. He actually submitted one.
Hi Chris, hiya listeners. Just regarding the best Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, I got two. I'm going to show my age now. One of my all-time favourite martial art films is No Retreat, No Surrender, where we saw a very young Jean-Claude Van Damme as a bad guy. And whether I think it was the last year of school, around about 1991, Bloodsport came out, and I remember rushing out, going to the shop to buy it on VHS video. So yeah, Bloodsport and No Retreat, No Surrender, hands down are my favourite Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Cheers, Chris. This is Lucci Delgado. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for your submission, Lucci, as always. Actually, Lucci raised an interesting point there about rushing out to buy a VHS copy. There is something, I'm sort of digressing a little bit here, I know, but I'm allowed to. There is something about watching some of the 80s and 90s films, in general, not just Jean-Claude Van Damme films. Don't you think, those of you that are old enough, don't you think that some of those films are they're just better on VHS? They just watch better on VHS. I don't know what it is about it, but they do. Do you not think? I think they do. I've actually got two VHS players in my office at my gym. One is virtually brand new. The other one I'm using till it stops working, on the basis that I've always got something to watch these films, or when I get a little bit of a nostalgic moment. Yeah, I don't know. There's something, and films, especially like sort of, as he says, Bloodsport and No Retreat, No Surrender, which he mentioned in there. Obviously, Van Damme plays the bad guy, and he does play a very convincing bad guy, with the hair slicked back, and yeah. So as I said at the outset, go watch that one. But go try watching some of them on VHS, because it does make a difference. Okay, so the next one is going to come from somebody that I have not actually spoken to for a long, long time. I knew him from the competition circuit and the sort of martial arts events as they were going, like Seni and things like that. But Mr. Joe Hallett.
Hey everyone, Joe Hallett here, fellow martial artist. I've been asked by Chris to talk about my favourite Jean-Claude Van Damme fight or film. One of my favourite films is Bloodsport. I love that film. It's great that it's a true story, or dramatised, about Frank Dukes fighting the Kumite. And the end fight between him and Bolo Young's character is just phenomenal. It really has that kind of 80s cheesy martial arts, slightly not realistic style, which is awesome. That's why we love those kind of movies back in that era. And that point where Jean-Claude's character is blinded and he can't really see what's happening, where his opponent is, and he's not sure where he is on the mat. And he remembers his training from his sensei, that he can kick and punch and fight blinded. And it's just pretty awesome. The moment he catches the kick and strikes, and then there's an array of flamboyant martial arts, from tumbling gymnastic moves to this signature 360 split kick, which in Expendables 2 they play homage to. I think it's like kicked 3 times. It's pretty corny, but it's great and it's awesome. So yeah, I love Bloodsport. I love that film. I love the end fight. So it's a phenomenal show to showcase the martial arts. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you, Joe, for your submission. Great to hear from you after all these years. Bloodsport. I said from the outset, Bloodsport is going to feature really heavily within this, because I know it resonates with a lot of people. It is. I think a lot of people tend to have their favourite as the first that they see, or not always, but a lot of the time. And I think a lot of people did see either Bloodsport or Kickboxer first when it comes to Jean-Claude Van Damme films. But yeah, the scene that you were mentioning there, the end fight sequence, it's very stylized, very 80s stylized. Obviously, that's when it was made, but it is your sort of go-to example of classic quality 80s martial arts fight sequences, obviously from America anyway. And yeah, the scene you're talking about where he gets the salt thrown in his eyes and then he has to remember. It's good the way it works. It ties up the film nicely, because it goes back to the flashbacks of, earlier in the film when he was taught to focus his mind and control his breathing, and then it gives him the ability to stay calm. And yeah, it is a great moment. It's a great film. It's one of those films where people like to quote from some classic quotes. It turns up in like the GIF files. If you search for Jean-Claude Van Damme, they're full of Bloodsport moments, and an absolute classic. Okay, so next of all, we're going to go to another UK action star and all-round talented martial artist, Mr. Lee Charles.
Morning all, Lee Charles. I'm just going to talk briefly about Van Damme. I remember first seeing him in No Retreat, No Surrender as Ivan the Russian. So, it is you, the son, is it not? And I just thought, wow, who's this guy? He was like... I remember thinking, he's just so evil. He's so evil. He's just like the ultimate bad guy, and he gets in and jumping in and doing the box splits and stuff. I remember speaking to Sugarfoot Peter Cunningham over in Prague when I fought in Prague at the WKA World Championships back in 2000, I think it was. I remember Peter Cunningham saying he'd never been knocked out until he did that team with Van Damme, and the 3 jumping back kicks that he did apparently KO'd him each time. So where he bounces him off the ropes and he comes in. But yeah, I mean, Van Damme, come on. Van Damme is just, you only have to look at his films, man. So, Time Cop, Sudden Death, Double Impact, Kickboxer, Bloodsport. These films paved the way for a lot of martial artists today and the generations today, and you know, he inspired millions. But for me, my favourite role from Van Damme, and it's probably one of his lesser roles, but I love it for what it was, is Black Eagle. You know, in the 80s, ninjas were everywhere, Shokosugi was everywhere, and Black Eagle was just like, for me, it was just the daddy. I still watch it today, still love it, still got, still got everything that I remember it to be. Yeah, Black Eagle. I think Black Eagle for me. Black Eagle was the one. He was like the ultimate bad guy, wasn't he? So I liked him as the bad guy. I liked Van Damme as the bad guy. So yeah, so for me, guys, it's Black Eagle. But you know, you can't take away from all these movies. You know, The Quest. There's just so many to choose from, isn't there? You know, and then obviously, you know, his later movies as well. You know, I actually loved JCVD as well. I thought it was very heartwarming, especially when he does that monologue to the camera and it's just him in the camera. You know, I thought that was cinematically, I thought it was a really good thing. But you know, in terms of inspiring me, you know, I wanted the physique, I wanted to be able to do the box splits, and I think me, along with a lot of other people of my generation, you know, we owe a lot to Van Damme. I'm getting to work in the movie industry now and to do the things that I do on the big screen. You know, he inspired me to do this. You know, have I worked with him? Not yet. I was meant to do something way back in 2006-ish, over in Bulgaria, but it never come off. So maybe one day, you know, get to work with the man himself. Who knows? But until then, keep watching this movie, guys. Keep being inspired, Van Damme. If you've not seen any of his old stuff, check it out. You know, his old stuff is perfect. Yeah. And the replicants, I like the replicants as well. So, yeah, keep it real, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thanks very much, Lee. An excellent submission as always. I think you summed it up pretty well there. There's so many, isn't there? There's just so many. You think, oh, I've picked one, and then, oh, hang on, I forgot about that. Because what you've just done, actually, is you've reminded me of Black Eagle. It just must have been just tucked away in my subconscious somewhere. I think that might have been the first time I saw him in a film. I think it might have been. I won't spoil the ending for anybody that hasn't seen it, but if you have, you'll know what I'm talking about. That ending of the end fight scene. That's just brought all those memories back for me now, watching it on VHS again, of course, on VHS. And you mentioned the replicant as well there, yeah, and that's another good one. Dealing with cloning and stuff, and yeah, I'm going through all those in my head now, those the ones that you mentioned. But yeah, as well, Lee mentioned at the end, you know, if you've not watched some of the older ones, do go back. And that's the thing, you know, you sort of follow the evolution of Jean-Claude Van Damme through the decades, the way he sort of reinvented himself, and you know, those trademark kicks that have followed him through the decades there, which is, you know, a credit to him, because, you know, he's managed to you know, keep those techniques sharp all the way through the years, which is not easy with his physique, and obviously the realities of age as well. I mean, you know, it's his birthday today, as we mentioned. I'm just going to get the sheet back up again, because I was reading from this earlier on. So yeah, born October the 18th, 1960. So he's 59. You know, and still kicking strong as ever, which is a credit to his hard work. Okay, so this next one we're going to go to our old friend Ken from the podcast On Fire. He actually sent this submission through for us.
Hey folks, this is Kenny B over at the Podcast On Fire Network. Have you all noticed how great of a non-verbal actor Jean-Claude has become? Mainly in Hell and Replicant, coincidentally 2 Ringo Lam movies. And he's very comfortably been able to bring that out and not rely on the fight action necessarily, and make a spectacle in terms of that. And I can't really speak on fight action and action eloquently, so I appreciated those film acting touches now that he's in this phase of his career, and I've not caught up on all the recent movies, but I'm hoping that development is still solid. So that has made me happy. This a terrific development for JCVD.
Thanks for sending that recording in, mate. That's really, really kind of you. I know you're really busy with all your podcasts and stuff, which is actually on that point. Go check it out, Podcasts on Fire. I've actually been a guest on there a number of times over the decades, actually. It's been, I'm trying to think, I've done a couple of recordings from. Anyway, I digress slightly. But yeah, some good points made there, actually. If you check out, actually, it's interesting you say that you've not checked out some of the more recent ones, because one of his very recent releases, a film by the name of We Die Young, Jean-Claude actually plays a character that doesn't speak, and there's next to no martial arts action in there at all. So he does rely really quite heavily on his acting ability in that film. And the same, well, it's not the same, obviously his character's completely different, but also in the film The Bouncer, which is known as Lucas as well. Same again, that was a 2018 release, and that's another very good example of his acting prowess as well. And then, although it was unfortunately axed after a while, the TV series Jean-Claude Van Johnson as well, there's some moments in there where we get to see him really flex his acting muscles as well. Muscles from Brussels, of course. But no, joking aside, he does get the opportunity to show how good of an actor he is, because I think that it can be a difficult one, obviously, with action stars. Sometimes people know them or think of them first for their physical abilities and then secondary for their acting. But with Jean-Claude, he is actually a very, very good actor. And fingers crossed over the coming years, he does get the opportunity to flex those muscles, so to speak, and let us all see what he's capable of. Okay, so moving on to the next one. This next one is from Cull, somebody that I've known through martial arts events and things over the years. A great guy and heavily into his martial arts, and he very kindly sent this clip over for us.
Hi Chris, I'll do a quick video for you. It's Cull here, Cull Shergill. So my first ever film that I watched with Van Damme was Kickboxer. And that movie was the one that kicked it all off for me. I mean, I knew about Bruce Lee and all that type of stuff, but when I watched Kickboxer, I searched the papers and everything. We never had Google back then. And I must have been 15, so I outsourced. I went to a karate place first, and that never did it for me. Very rigid, not very cool. So then I saw on the paper in the back American kickboxing, and from watching Kickboxer I went to this American kickboxing, and it kind of ticked all the boxes.
So there was a bit of a technical issue, shall we say, with the end of that recording, but I didn't want to not include it because Cull very kindly sent it in. But yeah, I get from the gist of it, I think very similar to a lot of people, they especially in the 80s, and he mentioned there not being any Google, which you had to do your own sort of yellow pages and newspaper searches back then, physical searches. And I think it's fair to say a lot of people did see those earlier films, and like I did, and they were captivated by those kicking techniques, and went on the hunt for something that was similar. And it was difficult, as you say, it was difficult to find things that looked like that. I mean, I was very fortunate that I managed to wander into a local taekwondo school and saw something along those lines. Although the initial spark for me was watching The Karate Kid, there was that, without a doubt, I was influenced as well by Van Damme and his kicking and things. And I saw some of that in some of the techniques that were taking place in the classes that I was seeing. And I think it's impossible for me to not say that the way that Van Damme kicked has heavily influenced the way that I'm kicking now. I think you can see that in if you go on any of my courses, if you head over to onlinekicking.co.uk and take a look at any of the free trial sections, then you see my kicks. Although they're nowhere near as good as his, I've been humble and all that, but the influence is there. It's undeniable, and I'm thankful for that. And through my quest to make my techniques look something like his, it led me down the path of sort of self-analysing and being ultra picky with the whys and hows of breaking down the sort of biomechanics, the movements leading up to the kick-in, the transference of weights, and all this sort of thing that I could go off on a real wild tangent about, but I won't. But the influence is definitely there. It is undeniable. Okay, so the next one we're going to go to is actually very successful martial artist and stunt performer in the industry, and somebody that was fortunate to work with him, Mr. Mike Miller.
Hi Chris, how are you? Mike Miller here. I would have to say my favourite Jean-Claude Van Damme movies are Universal Soldier, Hard Target, Double Impact, and Maximum Risk. My favourite fight scenes would be the fight scene at the end of Universal Soldier between Jean-Claude and Dolph. And I would have to say my personal favourite above all would be the fight scene at the end of Wrong Bet. I just love the rocky feel to it and the rawness of Jean-Claude's technique and the way he fought back to overcome a much larger opponent. In 1997, I had the privilege of working with Jean-Claude Van Damme on Knockoff, and I have to say I found him very cool and very professional and an all-round nice guy. My standout moment on set was when I had to do a jumping front kick to his character, and Alex Kuzalecki was taking his place as his stunt double. And Jean-Claude was off camera, and when he could have been in his trailer just relaxing, he was there spurring me on, giving me, like trying to rev me up and get me to do the best that I could do, because he was saying to me that this was my moment and this is going to be recorded on film for forever. So I have to say that his humility and just, the way he was doing that for me when he didn't have to, I found really impressive.
Thank you, Mike, for your time, for sending that in. And it's great to hear from somebody that's had the experience of working with him and knowing him. And it sounds what you've just said, I've heard echoed from other people. Like Lee was said earlier, I've not had the chance to work with him either, and Lee was saying he hasn't, and I hope to. But I'm sure Lee would agree as well. The one thing that we've heard from a lot of people is, how much of a decent guy he is, willing to give his time for other people and wanting to know that other people are okay, and giving you that extra bit of push to do your best. I would imagine that in some ways he remembers his time starting out, and the difficulties that he had, and the struggles that he had to go to get to where he's gotten to, and then later in his career as well, when he's had to sort of revitalize himself, and he's managed to. So he sounds like one of those people that is, he's had that experience of pushing through adversity, and he's keen to share that experience and help other people as well. I think it's well documented, how much of a sort of a humanitarian he is, and how much he cares for the planet, and the time that he gives specifically to dogs. I know that he rehomes and cares for a lot of dogs and animals in general. So yeah, it just gives off that sort of caring guy vibe. But with regards to working with him, dude, you lucky what's it? Working with Jean-Claude is on my list. I know I know a lot of people that have worked with him and that are friends with him, and I hope to maybe count myself amongst those people one day. Who knows? You just could be ready. You never know when these opportunities are going to come along. So again, thanks again for submitting. Really do appreciate you giving your time. Okay, so this next one is now this one is a very special one. This is a special one. If you listen to, or if you caught any of the fun promo clips that I put out leading up to the podcast going out, this is John Paul JP. He's somebody that I've gotten to know more and more over the years through social media. One of the positives of social media, fellow martial artist and an action performer, and he has the uncanny ability to mimic Jean-Claude Van Damme's voice. Like, super spot on. I've had people messaging me going, is that really Jean-Claude that sent those audio clips? It's so close. So big thanks to him for doing those. That's who did them. Anyway, let's listen to his thoughts.
Hello guys, I'd just like to say a very big thank you and I love you to all my fans around the world. If it were not for you, then I could not be here. So, now a very special Kickback with Chris, starring me. Oh yeah, JCVD. Hi Chris, it's JP from Liverpool here. So I've got real interest in Van Damme since an early age. Obviously, like the rest of the guys listening here, there's something about him that I really enjoyed watching. First of all, totally impressed with the way he moves. Kind of really interesting the way he was a European in an American movie with an interesting name. Lots of those things sort of contribute. I think probably now, looking back, a lot of the times we think about with friends who I work with, like Lee Charles or Joey Answer, we talk about the fight scenes a lot. We talk about how he sounds a lot and famous quotes, from movies. There's quite a few. I think probably the most famous ones are, because of my big legs and karate, I can do the splits, no problem. That sort of thing always rings bells. It makes good laughs. Some of the things he got away with as well, which were like blue tights, stuff like that. I guess you have to be JCVD to be able to work that and make it work. Talking about action sequences, of course, I think everybody's favourite party piece is Helicopter Kick, without a doubt. And there are a couple of different variations of it that you see in the movie as well. Most notably is probably the one from Bloodsport, which was his intro. And low camera angle, big stretching legs, fantastic form. I really like the way you have really classic ballet style form in the way he moves. Although Bloodsport Helicopter Kick's probably not my favourite, I think probably I'd go with either Hard Target or The Quest. And notably, I've seen him recently do it as well in Jean-Claude Van Johnson on a stuntman who's from Preston called Ben Jenks. And that was the 8711 team, I think, who put that action sequence together with his party piece kick. What's fantastic about that is you've probably seen a lot of people do it. It's not a very complicated kick to do now by today's standards. But I think it's the way in which he does it that makes it special, So many people replicate it, but if you watch the way he does it, for example, in Hard Target, when he does the guy with the shirt, he jumps and he kicks, and for the first time he kicks the camera. He kicks in the direction of the camera. You see the aggression in his face. So not only is he jumping doing this move that he's done since he was a teenager, but he's also acting as he does the kick, and that's tricky. Because I've got video clips of me doing that kick as far back as like 16, and I pull a really strange face. So, to be able to look and have some acting, some facial expression, some aggression in the voice in the face when he does that move, it's tricky as well. And notably, a lot of people try to do it and they have froggy legs with a bent knee. I've seen a couple of nice guys copy it, It will probably remain, for me, the best trick I've seen. I know you can see a lot of fantastic things nowadays, like Scott Adkins' party piece Guyver kick. It's a brilliant kick, and he performs it so well. And you can see huge JCVD influences in how Scott moves, because you can just tell the form is just clean and just on point, and that's a ballet term, obviously. And it shows, So I think best films for me are, Bloodsport is up there, Double Impact for sure. Time Cop has to be my favourite of those three, because the story-driven, romantic sort of, life-changing scenario in that is great. I love a good sci-fi time travel movie, I didn't watch a lot of the later movies, sadly. I've got a bit preoccupied. I need to sit down. I think I watched a little bit more of Scott's stuff recently, but again, I don't really get the time to do that either. But talking about later movies, JCVD, obviously fantastic. And then I went to see the Expendables 2 movie in the cinema. It was great to see Scott in that. Great homegrown hero, and that's just a dream job to have Chuck Norris, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and your hero in the movie with you as a sidekick. Now, if that is not the dream job, I don't know what is. So I have an interesting story about Expendables 2. So I'm sitting in the cinema, and a few of us guys like to go to the cinema alone, where you're not going to get disturbed, and where the people aren't going to brass you off. And I was in there and I thought, yes, Expendables 2, one big huge cinema by myself, and, you know, fantastic opportunity to really enjoy the film. And then guys just started to come in, and they're all single fellas, you know, and then I was so looking forward to how that movie panned out and transpired. And then the pivotal point at the end came, and I've never jumped out of a chair or cheered at a movie in my life until I saw Van Damme floor Rocky and Rambo. And I just jumped out of my chair and I thought, yes. And he did it with his trademark kick. And, you know, it was a different take on it. It was a high speed with a wide angle and no slow-mo, but it still read. It still had good power, and it still made you jump out of the seat, you know. And he has a little quote in that where he goes, "Whoa, over so soon? I want my money's worth." And it was just great drama, and that's what I loved about it, you know. As an actor, looking at JCVD over the years, I think he gets a bad rap sometimes because I do personally feel he's an underrated actor. So put all the kicks and, you know, bodybuilding and action star aside, sometimes you've really got to dig deep to be able to bring out the emotion in the face, and he can do that really well. He taps into something, and you can see it there. I think most probably my favourite fight for drama wise was definitely the fight with Abdul Kisi at the end of Lionheart, or AWOL as some people refer to it as. If you watch the face, look at his face, that is Van Damme's Rocky for sure. That is absolutely Van Damme's Rocky. And you watch the way he kicks and punches and throws, the aggression in his face, the direction from Sheldon Lettich there is definitely hugely impacting. A great performance from JCVD. And then notably a lot of those other movies that he did where there's a lot of pain, you know, and to be able to tap into that and to bring that would be exasperating to do day in, day out. You would be in a dark place for a lot of the time trying to get those expressions out. So I have ultimate respect for him. I always will have ultimate respect for him, and I think the strongest thing in his character is not about films, and it's not about being a personality. It's about, you know, he's had hard times, you know, and he's not afraid to talk about them. He's not afraid to revisit them. He's not afraid to say, I learned from them, I made mistakes, and I moved on. And that is a real measure of an individual, a real test of a man, to be able to stand up and to say, hey, I'm not perfect, I'm human, you know, I'm not everything that you see on the screen. But you know what? I pick up and I carry on and I keep on going. And that is, you know, a really good rhetoric to live by. And I will always be super impressed by him for that. And I think that's probably his strongest suit. So I could go on all day talking about him. Probably one of my favourite subjects, to be honest. But I'll, you know, let other people to debate that. And a really overdue topic for your podcast. Love listening, and can't wait to hear everybody else's opinions. Best of luck with it all. Take care.
Wow. I think that is hands down the most in-depth reply or comment I've ever had ever on a podcast. Absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you very much for sending that in. And interestingly as well, and this is honest, honest now. All these recordings that have come in, I've not listened to them in their entirety. I've listened to them as I've laid them out in the timeline as I've been editing this today. And what's really interesting to hear there, JP, is the amount of content there that you or thoughts, should I say, that you're mirroring with myself. You know, things that I've touched on earlier on this episode. The fact that he's an underrated actor, absolutely, I agree, and I mentioned that before. and the fact that he's willing to talk about and discuss some of those more difficult times in his life, which many actors try and shut down as quickly as possible, or move the subject along, shall we say. And Jean-Claude's one of those people who has always been, or more recently should I say, has been willing to just engage in conversation without being prompted on it. He just brings it up himself. With some of his more recent Facebook lives being an example. I think possibly he does open himself up a little bit too much sometimes, but that's, if you're going to have a character flaw, then maybe that's one of the better ones to have. But yeah, thank you very much for super in-depth reply, and of course for your amazing audio clips, which I'm going to keep and probably use again, time and time again. So moving on to the final one. My good friend Mike Leader, I've known him for, again, decades, probably about 20 years now, and I've been trying to arrange to get him on the show for an episode of his own, which we will do eventually at some point. But he very kindly sent in an audio clip of his time knowing Jean-Claude and working with him. So this is going to be the final one for the episode. So over to Mike.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'll tell you about that Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's a really good dude. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for well over 30 years. First met him when he was doing press for a little movie called Bloodsport. And he was quite impressed that I recognised him from No Retreat, No Surrender. Had the pleasure of getting to know him and interviewing him countless times over the years, and working with him on a couple of projects, both in front and behind the camera. Most notably Pound of Flesh, where he beat me senseless for my sins, which were probably most deserved. Without him, I don't think we'd have a lot of things in the martial arts. Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris opened a lot of doors, but Van Damme was really the first martial arts star to cross over into the mainstream. Appearing in Friends, appearing in other TV shows. His name became synonymous with martial arts and action. Long before the Chuck Norris facts, we kind of had all the Van Damme jokes. Very intelligent, very charismatic, very good martial artist. I know a lot of people complain that he's not a real fighter, in which case I'd suggest go and spar with him, hold the pads for him, or get hit by him in a movie. The man can fight, but he knows how to control it for a film. Yes, he's had his ups and downs, as have we all. And a lot of people, I think, get the wrong idea of him, because sometimes he can be aware, shall we say. He's got his own way of saying and doing things. But there's a very good dude there. Prime example, years ago, when my mother passed away, he was trying to reach me. I'd flown back to England. He was emailing me. He messaged me to ask me why I wasn't answering my emails. I messaged him back, say sorry, family emergency, had come back to take care of my mum's funeral. 5 minutes later he calls me up to check if I'm okay. And I ended up spending a week in Belgium with him and his family afterwards, just hanging out, and it was something I needed. He knew I needed friends and family around me. Might sound stupid, but that's how I kind of consider him. He's a big brother. We don't always see eye to eye. We won't always agree about things. But he's a good dude. And as I said, I think he opened the door for a lot of people in regards to martial arts, and also for MMA. I don't know if the UFC was inspired by Bloodsport, but you know what I mean.
Thank you, Mike. What a perfect way to bring this section of the episode to a close. Thank you for your, for sharing your personal experiences as well. That really does help to paint a much broader picture of Jean-Claude as a person. The fact that it was, and I would imagine that the guy's just busy constantly, but the fact that he was taking time out to make sure that you're okay and give you the phone calls and then offer you up the place to stay for a week. I think it goes to show, his true self as an individual. Now, touching on what you mentioned about him being underrated as a martial artist, as indeed as a fighter as well. I mean, I know from the brief history that I know of him that he did have quite a successful run early days as a competitive fighter, and that there was potential there for him to go on to much bigger things. Obviously, he chose the direction of going into films, which I personally think was a good decision. But what could have come of that competitive side to his martial arts training? I think he for sure had the ability to go far with it. But yeah, mate, really, really, really good share, and thanks for sending that clip in. And indeed, thanks to everybody that has contributed this week to this episode. Without you guys sending these clips in, episodes like this just aren't possible. So a big, big, big thank you to you. And just to close on this, I would like to say a big happy birthday to Jean-Claude. Happy birthday for today. If you're listening, there's the possibility there, you never know. But also to his fans around the world as well that they're listening in, give this episode a share. I know that one of the fan groups in the UK have been really keen and kind to get in touch, and thank you to them as well. So now, in a bit of a twist, we're actually going to go over to our section with Matt Chapman for our weekly Matt Chat. We didn't have one last week with the Alfie Lewis special, and we'd actually got one recorded ahead of time. So I wanted to give Matt the time this week, as we should do. It's quite fair, as they're a show sponsor. And let's have a quick chat with Matt, and I'll be back at the end.
Brought to you by www.mittmaster.com.
So, guys, joining me on the phone at the same time every week, Mr. Matthew Chapman. How are we doing today, sir? And before you say anything, it's sunny.
No, it's raining cats and dogs, as the English would say.
It's not here. It's sunshine.
What?
Yes.
I need to move up north for one day.
Yeah, that's it.
Then come back down south.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, fair. We've got better chips up here. And
true. I get true.
And just everything's cheaper.
Yeah, you're actually right. Yeah, but generally your weather is shocking, in my humble opinion, as a southerner.
Yeah, but we can afford to have the heating on more.
Are we going to just spend the next 45 minutes doing this north-south battle?
We're good at making fire. So
what? Hey, what was that last one?
So we're good at making fires. We're quite rural and earthy.
I don't think you can say that about the north, that you're good at making fires. We can make fires in the south as well.
Okay. We'll sort that out one day.
To disagree on this.
Anyway. So, what have you been up to? What's good? I've seen you've been busy at an event this week.
Was I?
I thought you were.
I really don't know what is going on in my life day to day, Chris.
Oh, right.
What was I doing?
I thought you were at a conference or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was at a business conference. So I like to try and update my education, see what's coming in the market, and try and help people out. So I went to a conference. It was really good, really smart business types who have £100 million sort of businesses. So for me, just floating around with these types of people, you kind of realize it's levels of thinking, right?
Yeah.
There's various different levels, and I'm just a little, very small fish. So I have to upgrade my thinking. I think if you just spend time with people who are running businesses of that sort of size, it just makes you think bigger, and that's good. So
it definitely does. It definitely does. One of the things that we were just chatting about before we started recording, probably one of the problems I'm finding anyway at the minute, and I don't know whether this is extending to the community as a whole, but I'm certainly finding it harder at the minute to generate new leads for my school and for my online courses and things through social media. Now, I know there's been changes to it, and I think the flashpoint's come and gone now, hasn't it? With the ease of using social media, you can't just chuck a post on, "I've got this cool thing," and then 5 people want to do it straight away.
Yes.
It's changed. It's definitely changed. And I know that there's a mix between, Google and everything else as well. But, for example, I put a post out to promote a new starters course for our junior program.
Yes.
And as always, I have my reach. I have my audience set. I budget to the cost of one person joining the course to advertise it for 5 days.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a single person.
Yeah. Did you market it to exactly the same group as you usually would do and all of that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, everything was the same.
Yes.
To the previous one that generated 5 new starters.
Yes.
This time, nothing.
So what you need to realize about social media is it's not an exact science.
Yeah, true.
It's not you can just chuck money in and money will come back out, sadly, because
God, darn it.
because there's so many different factors playing a part. And as Gary Vee and various other experts talk about, there's 2 parts to social media. There's kind of like the math side, where you're targeting a particular audience and a certain number of people. But then there's the art side, the other side, which is, are you creating the right images? Are you creating the right text? Is your offer strong? Which will affect how it responds. And the most important thing really is, because Facebook will take care of the math side for you, finding the right people in your local area of the right age, of the right gender that you're trying to look for. The most important thing is getting the media, the content correct. And it's not an exact science. So what you put out one day won't get you the same result the next day, which is why so many people struggle with social media.
Absolutely. Now, I've actually, interestingly, whilst I've been perusing through Facebook Marketplace looking for the next useless purchase that I don't need, I've noticed a couple of your adverts pop up on my screen. Is that
Marketplace as well?
Yes.
Oh lordy, I think I need to disable that.
Oh, I didn't know if it was a new thing that you were trying, but
no. So basically, I allow Facebook to select where my ads are going to be placed, because you want to assume that Facebook knows best. So I can check out whether that's actually getting me any sales from Marketplace. I'd be surprised though, but you never know. But I know exactly what you mean with the online marketing thing. It's changing, and what I think part of the problem is we're just doing too much on it. As in, people are trying to sell stuff on it too much now. But it's not having the same effect because people are getting used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I launched my first online course, I remember thinking, wow, this is great. I'm getting all these sales. This is brilliant. If I can keep this going, this is going to be brilliant. And of course, that didn't happen. But it's trying to, as you say, trying to find new audience, isn't it? Trying to reach new people. And
yes,
I think people are becoming a little bit resistant to it as well.
Of course they are. Yeah,
they've had it shoved in their face for 1.5 years now, and well, not shoved in their face, but it's not got that same wow that it had when it was new.
New always works. Something that's new always gets people's attention. Something that's different always gets people's attention. Something that's shocking, clickbaity type stuff always gets people's attention. But it's just that there's so many adverts in the Facebook stream right now. Do you not think?
Yeah, that's true.
Like you're scrolling through and it's like a couple of posts from your friends and then an advert, a post from your friend, then 2 adverts, and then, so they're obviously increasing the amount of adverts they're allowing to be shown inside of Facebook.
So possibly a question that you can't really answer, but I'll ask it anyway because that's irritating. What's the next step then? What do you think? How do you think it's going to progress now?
Change the way you use the content. So rather than making it all offers and sales, you want to start sharing and making ads for content that's just useful for people, so that you are first to mind when they think about starting martial arts. So the problem we all make as instructors and business owners is we just basically put out ads continuously, and we'll only pay for ads to go out.
Yeah,
because we know we're going to make a return, hopefully.
Yeah.
With Facebook, you can also put out content that's just educational and informative, fun content that would be useful to your audience, and actually spend money just sharing that with no offer, nothing like that. So you could boost to your local community, like 10 self-defense tips for winter, 5 self-defense tips for winter. Boost that and actually spend money for people to see it, but with no like buy this special course now at the end. And that will, if you do that consistently enough and don't mind spending the money, sort of put you top of mind in the local area for martial arts self-defense training when they're ready. The problem with people on Facebook is they're not really ready to buy.
Got you.
So you have to do quite a lot of warming them up, especially if they don't know you. If they don't know you, they're on Facebook to interact with their friends, look at cat videos, that sort of thing. They're not on Facebook to buy necessarily, unless they're a marketplace like you.
Well, they're on their toilet break, aren't they? Or but waiting for Britain's Got Talent to come back on, or
So in fact, they're on there. Do you know what Facebook? Someone said this to me. I think it was Ryan Dice, not said it to me, but said it on a podcast I heard. Facebook is designed. What's its function? It's designed to waste time.
Yeah.
That's what we use Facebook for, really, other than communicating with our friends and sharing stuff. We use it to just kill time. So ads kind of, unless it's really hyper targeted and relevant to the person, don't really allow people to do that. So if you could put out more educational content, more informational content, more amusing, entertaining content, then you get more engagement and people might share it and comment on it. So
I've been trying to do that with, you may have seen, I've been putting out just free clips, PDFs, with tutorial stuff, just trying to just be that nice guy, give some things away, help people out. And it does work, but my problem is being consistent.
Yes.
I'll have a splurge for 4 days, and then my focus goes off elsewhere.
Of course. But that's because you run a real business, so your focus is on the business, isn't it? Teaching students, taking care of students, dealing with problems. It's really hard to then continue to be marketing every day. It's difficult. I totally understand that. And what you got to understand with marketing, Nick James, who's a kind of marketer in the UK, said something that it hit me more than anything else at this seminar that I was at. He said, your marketing budget is the amount of money you're willing to lose to learn something. So you put out your ad and you didn't sell any places. So then you've got to go, instead of going, bollocks, I'm not doing Facebook anymore. The right thing to do is, right, I've learned something. Something wasn't right here. Maybe the audience wasn't right. Maybe the ad wasn't right. Maybe the words weren't right. Maybe the offer wasn't strong enough. Maybe the image I use. And then you have to test all of these things to find out what it is. Most people aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to spend money to test what's working and what's not working, even though in the long run they'll learn a lot more about marketing and they'll also get more inquiries, more students from it. But most people don't like, even though they will also then put out 10,000 flyers with a less than 1% return.
Yes. It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, you're right. And it is about testing, isn't it? And taking the time to actually analyze what you've done, how you've done it, and learn from it. Just the same as we would apply to our training.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you keep getting smacked in the ribs with a sidekick. You start figuring it out, right? You don't just keep walking into the sidekick. So we need to do the same with our social media. But you've just got to create a lot of content. And I've upped my content now to 20 posts a day across my various pages.
Yeah,
different platforms that I use. And funnily enough, I'm getting rewarded with Facebook with more reach. So my posts are reaching more people organically because I'm putting out enough content that they consider I might be worth sharing a bit more of. And I'm getting more engagement. So everything I put out is getting lots of comments and people messaging me off the back of it. So you have to do the work of putting out with marketing. There's only really two ways of marketing. There's time-based marketing, where you create content, you put stuff out there, you engage with people, you chat via Messenger. And then there's money-based marketing, where you just basically pay for exposure to your market. So a mixture of both. If you don't have a lot of money, then you want to spend a lot of time working social media. And if you don't, if you have money, then spend a bit of money, but also spend a bit of time just engaging with people and talking to people. It is a big old pain in the butt, isn't it? Which is why I prefer, to be honest, referrals. I think once your school hits over 100 members, you should be really focusing on referrals more than social media, more than Google, more than anything else. because it's just so much easier to get a referral and get the person to sign up than it is to do all the put a Facebook post out, get some engagement, speak to the person, message them 27 times, return to the message, make them an offer, they're not ready, go back to them 6 months later, make them another offer, they're still not ready, go back to them, they are ready, but they can't make this night. Like, it's a big old drag, right? Whereas if you just incentivize your current students to bring in referrals and remind them of referrals and have specific referral dates that are important in your school and do rewards for referrals, that just works better because they do all the selling for you. They think of their friend who's a little bit overweight and wants to do something, and they say, come and check out the kickboxing club, it's amazing, instructors, they're selling it for you. They turn up, you teach a good class, they sign up, so much easier.
Absolutely is. Good, some good food for thought there.
Plenty, hopefully.
Plenty indeed. So what have you got going on? Anything coming up?
What are you asking me? I don't really know what I'm doing.
Well, actually, I said earlier, I saw you were at the event and you were like, what event?
Now, actually, I've got a MITS and marketing. So I obviously have spent a lot of time and money educating myself on marketing. And so what I offer people now is a MITS and marketing package, which is a 2.5-hour Mittmaster seminar followed by a 2.5-hour marketing consultation where we just run through all of this stuff and design a marketing plan for the school. So I got one of those on Sunday. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely is. Which way round are they doing it? Are they doing learning and hitting or hitting and learning?
I think they're doing hitting and sweating and then learning in the pub afterwards. So
you don't want to do those the wrong way around?
No, true. No, definitely not.
Don't do learning in the gym and
then go and train,
Yeah. Oh, the pint master mat more than Mittmaster mat.
It reminds me of student days when I used to train frequently, slightly intoxicated. But
let's not go there.
No, I'm a mature man now. So I don't do that.
Actually, whilst you're on, seeing as though it ties in with the theme of this week, do you have a favourite Jean-Claude Van Damme film?
Yes. Oh my God, Hard
Said
Target.
That with some exuberance. Good choice.
Hard Target. Come on.
Good choice.
Oh, just amazing. The mullet.
Yeah.
The John Woo is an amazing director, so he just made it just look ultra cool, didn't he? The white beater vest, the hook kick to round kick, just
that bit. Take your pig stick on your boyfriend and find a bush stretch.
I haven't actually watched many more Van Damme films. I've watched a few classics, but Hard Target. It's like if Die Hard comes on TV or Enter the Dragon comes on TV, it's something I have to watch because it's just stylish as hell, isn't it?
Even if it's 11 o'clock in the evening, it's on Channel 5, and you know there's going to be 3 hours of adverts, you've still got to watch it right to the end, even though you know what's going to happen.
And the bad guy, what's it? Lance Henriksen, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, I've forgotten his name now, off the top of my head.
Lance Henriksen, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to cook me a steak. Hey, Randall, I'm going to cook me a steak.
So I think if you haven't seen Hard Target, you're missing out on a classic martial arts / action movie. John Woo, I like a lot of John Woo stuff, so that was a good one.
Good choice.
Thanks, mate. What's yours? Kickboxer?
No, Hard Target.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Sweet. Good math stuff, man.
You can't. When he punches the snake.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. And rides on the back of the bike like a surfboard.
Yes.
Dives over the cars.
Yeah. It's just ridiculousness, isn't it? And the pigeons and the white doves and all that he does, and
it's ridiculous yet believable. It's just great.
I think the mullet just sealed the deal for me. I think.
Yeah. That was Van
Damme, Swayze, in Roadhouse.
That was it was at his peak. That was when he was right. It was riding the crest of the wave that was success.
It
was
at
that point.
Yes, it was. It's a good film.
Not that he's not having it; he's having a bit of a resurgence at the minute, so that's pretty cool. Apparently, he's making his last martial arts film as well.
What, his last?
His last one, until he gets another better offer, I would imagine. But no. Apparently, he's making a follow up to The Quest or something along those lines. Sort of martial arts actioner sort of thing. So we'll see.
Not? All the other old guys have come back, haven't they?
Well, yeah. Well, until he gets a better deal for another Expendables type thing, or
exactly. Yeah.
I think Jackie Chan's been making his last action film now for about 20 years.
Yeah, Jackie's amazing though, isn't he?
God, he's just crazy. You know, he's in the 60. What is he now? 65, 6?
Is he? God, is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Still
More
bouncing
power Jackie.
around like a reception age child. You know.
Yeah.
Crazy. Crazy. Anyway, good to chat as always. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, mate. Will do. Cheers. Bye.
Brought to you by www.mittmaster.com.
So as always, a big thank you to Matthew Chapman for his time. Looking forward to catching up with him very soon at one of his events. Actually, I'm going to be going along to his Mittmaster training course in Sheffield. I believe it is. He's just mentioned it, but it's November. Let me just double check. November the 2nd. So coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you're going to be there, look me up. I'll be there and be happy to chat, get pictures, all that sort of cool stuff, and do some training. Training together is always good. Now, just a few things just to round up the episode. Now, some of you may have seen my I actually spoke about it briefly earlier on the episode, my online courses, onlinekicking.co.uk. Now, what I did last weekend is I did a special offer on the price of the course. And I actually decided to open it up to all 3 of my main courses, and it was going to be a weekend special, but I knew we had the Van Damme special coming up, and then obviously today with it being his birthday, I thought, you know what, I'm going to leave the reduced price there. So the main course itself is usually £35. That's actually down to $19.99 at the minute, which is an absolute stupid bargain. If Matt's listening to this now, he's going to tell me off because that's way too cheap. But you know, I'm a nice guy. I'm trying to be more like Jean-Claude, you know. So $19.99 for the main course. These are the stupid deals as well. My kicking, strength and control course, which is usually a tenner, that's down to $5.99. Some really good leg strength. My tongue's not working. Some really good leg strength. It won't increase the length of your kicks. Can't help you with that one, I'm sorry. But definitely help you with your leg strength and control, and some real killer drills in there. So that's $5.99, which is peanuts. And finally, my kick training pad work drills. So lots of different pad training drills, great for kids and adults alike. And you know, if you're just looking for different ways to train your kicks other than the standard pad drills, that's down from $14.99 to $9.99. Now, with each of these, obviously, the money that comes in goes towards helping for the podcast costs, which, you know, the hosting costs, that sort of thing, and to help us with moving things on. So, you know, if you're interested in those, go check them out, onlinekicking.co.uk. Also, Matt Chapman is very kindly made as an affiliate part of his Mittmaster content. So anytime you see me on my personal profile or through the podcast profile posting any of the links to his courses, then if you get them through those links, we do get a percentage kickback, so to speak, of that, which again goes towards helping us with our costs. So if you see those and you're interested, please do take advantage of those links. Doesn't cost you a penny more, but you know, part of it does go towards helping us with our costs. And then finally, our friends over at artmartialclothing.com, they still have their awesome offer on to save 20% on any of their products. So any of their super cool Bruce Lee inspired t-shirts, their ever popular Blossom Tree t-shirt designs and hoodies, awesome quality stuff. I've got several of their hoodies and t-shirts. If you use the promo code CJ19 and when you head over to artmartialclothing.com, you can save yourself 20%, which is a stupidly good deal on any of their items. So yes, get involved with all of those. Now, coming up in the next few weeks, we've got some awesome guests. I was actually chatting to one a couple of days ago. I'm not in a position yet to officially divulge who it is, but it will be another cracking one. If you enjoyed our Alfie Lewis episode, then this is going to be another giant from the martial arts industry that you're going to really enjoy listening to. I'm just trying to sort out the logistics because I'd like to do this one in person if possible, but there is quite some distance between myself and this person, so I'm just trying to get that all tied up. But yes, thank you again for your support. Please, as always, do like and share these posts. If you're on iTunes, do drop us a rating because it really does help. For ways to listen, you can always head over to www.kickbackpodcast.com. Wow, my mouth today. Or as always, you can also use our alternative URL, which I never really promote, which is is martialartspodcast.co.uk, which is a pretty good URL, so you can use that one as well. But yeah, like and share, do all that good stuff for us, and on our Facebook group, please do like and subscribe and share as well. Thanks guys, and I'll catch up with you all next time.